Summer's here.
Oh, finally.
Finally. And didn't it suddenly arrive? Yeah, I can't believe how quickly the summer has suddenly arrived.
Yeah, no, but it's going to be over after today, isn't it?
More than likely, yeah.
So,
Damn it.
yeah.
Well, we're used to only having a few days of summer every
Yeah.
year, so.
Yeah, we make the most of it. I've been out, I don't know if you can see, I've been out in the garden
Oh.
every day.
Every day.
every day. I'm an absolute sun whore. So any opportunity, I'm like, oh, the garden needs doing. I've cut the grass yesterday. The grass needs cutting.
I'm going to go and cut the grass today, actually. Again.
Oh, you.
Yeah.
I need to do a dump run, so I might I mean, I don't need to go to the toilet, but I need to go to the to take some stuff to the tip. I don't know what Americans call it.
I've got to run for a dump.
Run for the dump.
Nice.
Oh dear. Right, before we start, I need to do a shout out for one of our subscribers. And Chris, you know who you are. Sent us a text message, and the only way for us to reply is by email. So you text us, we get the information, and then we reply to your email. I don't think Chris is either not getting our emails or not checking. But I've also tried to contact you, Chris, on Instagram and Facebook. So get in touch on one of those, and then I can help sort out your problem. Yeah, it's like a public appeal to get in touch with Chris.
Yeah. Chris, if you're out there, we'll be in touch. You get in touch, and then we'll be in touch.
Yeah. Yeah, we've been in touch, but I think Chris seems like the sort of person to not use any social media.
My kind of person.
Yeah, understandable.
Yeah, no probs.
Speaking of social media, we put out a post to see what were people's top 3 episodes.
We did.
So I'm going to read a few because everybody's top 3 was different.
Yeah.
Which was really interesting. So let me find it. Luann's was Mothman, Horror at Blue John Canyon, and the Willowbrook.
Oh.
Some great ones. Jennifer's I Fell from the Sky.
Yeah.
The Girl with No Name and the Chameleon. And I think they're some of my favourites as well. The Girl with No Name, one of my favourites, and the Chameleon as well. Favourites. Yeah. Tess, Silent Twins, Mothman and Willie Picton.
Yeah. Willie Picton was gross, but for some reason it stayed like one of my favourites.
Yep. And Karen's was she said the one about Candy Montgomery and Betty Gore, but I think that was the Friday the 13th axe murder. Travis Walton and the Silent Twins. Maddie's was Mothman, Woman in the Box, and the Silent Twins.
Silent Twins is popular, isn't it?
Yeah, so's Mothman. Mothman.
Silent Mothman.
Silent, yeah. Josie's was The Girl in the Box, Jonestown, and Matthew Shepard.
Oh, Matthew Shepard.
I shouldn't have read that, should I? It's triggering for you.
It is. Oh, I know. I actually have really struggled because my top three keep changing. Like I really, it's weird, isn't it, to say I really enjoyed.
That's the thing, isn't it? I really loved listening to the story of Willie Picton and his disgusting murders and stuff. It's weird to say, but we're all in this together.
Yeah, yeah. But I really enjoyed Girl in the Box for sick and twisted reasons. But I really liked The Girl in the Box. I found that absolutely fascinating. Obviously, I loved doing Mothman. I love everything about Mothman. I really liked Willie Picton. I still feel kind of bitter and twisted about Leonard Lake and Charles Ng, but I kind of enjoyed it, finding out about it, because I just find it enjoyable to have that mind process of what makes people do these things. It's so perplexing. It's the whole point of us starting this podcast was because we wanted to talk about it and wanted to pass around these ideas of like, why what would make someone do something like that? Why would they do it? But yeah, I Fell from the Sky was definitely one of my favorites. Just so many of them.
Yeah, I'm just looking through all of them now because there's like 72 episodes and more than that actually because of the Blams. But yeah, some of them, I mean, some of them we've covered that are perplexing because we don't know who done it or something like that. Like the John Bonet, the murder itself not perplexing, but you know who done it, we've got no idea.
Yeah.
But ones like I clawed out my own eyes and the phone stalker are perplexing for a different reason. Cannibal Cafe, I like that
100%.
one.
Yeah, definitely.
Jonestown, I think for me, Jonestown has been the hardest hitting.
Yeah.
The research that I had to do for that, and I think Jonestown was the one that's affected me the most.
Yeah.
It's just so senseless but actually so common and so easy. There's a new Netflix documentary coming out about a TikTok dance cult or something like that, and there was Eat Love Pray, that's about a cult, and all these ones that they're so easy to fall prey to. You never think that you'd get swooped up into some sort of cult, but it's just scarily easy, I think, to be manipulated.
Yeah, definitely. It's people's inner primal need to be accepted and part
to be
of
social
something.
and
and be part of a group or a family, or you know, and it's a shame because you know people take advantage of that and end up getting themselves in all sorts of trouble.
Random Blams, go.
Oh, my random blam for today is actually what we were just talking about the top 3 episodes. So everyone's had their vote on what their favorite 3 are, but our top 3 most downloaded episodes are at number 3 is Travis Walton, which was episode 2. Number 2 is the Pollock twins, which was our first ever episode. And at number 1, storming ahead as the most downloaded episode, is the Psychic Detective. Which was episode number 8. Just following that on with countries. Our podcast is most downloaded by a massive landslide in the United States. So we have got most of our listeners are in the United States. Number 2 is the United Kingdom. And number 3 is Australia.
Yeah, I'm going to have a look to see.
Yes.
I want to have a look to see what state in America listens the most.
Oh, fancy. I have a sneaking suspicion that it's probably Mothman that listens the most. I think that's probably factual.
Yeah. So our America is our top listener base. But actually it's Brisbane in Australia that have the most listens of all the cities that listen. Of the 2,952 cities that listen, Brisbane is the most listens, so the most amount of people in Brisbane.
Well done, Brisbane.
Yeah, keeping it.
Yeah, because I think it keeping it real, keeping it perplexing. I think the listens that we've got in America are sort of spread out all over America.
Well, that's because America's so many cities and stuff in.
Yeah, love that. You know, people say you either yearn to live in Australia or you yearn to live in America. I think we're quite a good mix because I think you're very pro Australia, aren't you?
Oh yeah, I love Australia. Yeah.
And I'm very pro-America. I love America. I love Australia as well.
My stepdad's in America at the minute. Blair's dad.
He is.
Yeah.
Baz.
Baz up.
Right, Bazza. What's up?
He doesn't listen.
No. He doesn't even listen when you talk to him, so he's not going to be listening to the podcast, is he? No. Yeah. Your stepfather, my father-in-law.
Yeah.
Right, Baz? We're giving you a shout out, Baz, and you don't even know.
Right, my random blam is very personal to me, and I thought I would share it, and it may affect you as well.
Oh.
And it is about brain fog caused from menopause.
Oh,
because recently, for those that don't know, for anybody listening, I am 33 and currently going through menopause because of my previous cancer diagnosis. So the brain fog that I suffer with has been affecting me more the last few days, to the point where I am trying to formulate a sentence, but words just don't come to me. So I just, every now and then I'm like, yeah, so that, what's that? Where's that place? And then Josie will say the place, and they go, oh yeah, and then we went to that, what's that that shop that we went to, the one with the thing, and she's like, oh yeah, this. I was like, yeah, and then what did we get? What was that thing that we got?
She's like, there's no point to this conversation.
There's absolutely no point. I literally can't formulate a sentence properly because I've got no idea what I'm talking about most of the time.
Yeah. You know,
so my blam is
that thing with the stuff.
So that is that thing with the stuff. So my blam is, why does that happen? So estrogen. So you're going to menopause when your estrogen levels fall. So my estrogen levels are non-existent because I'm not allowed any estrogen in my body.
Nope,
because
not allowed.
The cancer was like loving it. So in order to keep the cancer at bay, not allowed any estrogen. So estrogen stimulates the brain. It keeps the neurons firing, supports the growth of new cells, and helps existing cells to form new connections. When estrogen levels fall in midlife, your entire body, including your brain, goes into a sudden deprivation state. At a cellular level, estrogen pushes your brain cells to burn more glucose, which is its main fuel. So obviously, without estrogen, your brain doesn't burn fuel properly. Studies have shown that there is an overall reduction of brain energy levels during menopause, which can trigger hot flushes, night sweats, anxiety, depression, brain fog, and the host of other cognitive symptoms mentioned.
Simpsons.
So I told you, I can't word. My brain goes, what?
Huh?
What?
Know, it's a good job we do a podcast, isn't it?
Yeah. So for all of those going through menopause or that have been through menopause, hats off to you. Because I'm going to be in this way for 10 years and then come out of it and then go back into it. So I'm going to have two.
Yes.
I'm going to go through this twice.
And for all of you that don't know, I am not 33. I am older and I am actually going through my menopause. So you've got me and Sarah both going through menopause.
Talking shit
because we can't find our words and yeah. Sorry about that.
Right, well, that's random blams done.
Morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Do you want to know what I'm fuming about today?
I would love to know what you're fuming about.
So, the Northern Lights.
Oh, don't.
The Northern Lights, right? There should have been some sort of countrywide alert to say you're gonna miss the Northern Lights if you don't step outside. Yeah. I had no idea. No idea that they were about. None at all. No. So the next day, when everyone was like, "Oh, the Northern Lights are beautiful," posting up all their pictures, I was fuming. Yeah, because I've missed out now. Yeah. And then the next day, supposedly we was able to see them again. I stood outside. Yep. Couldn't see anything. So I was fuming about that. Do you know what I did the night of the Northern Lights? What?
Had a goddamn early night.
Did you? So that's
Yeah.
actually me and Josie went to see this Disney amateur Disney sing-along performance, which it was either going to be great or rubbish, and we went and it was all right, but we was like singing our heart out to the Disney songs. So we actually didn't go to bed till 11:30, which is incredibly late for us.
Very
And
late.
we were sat at the kitchen table playing cards, where a clear view of like the garden, the sky, but had no idea what was going on behind me, and went, oh no, it's
Yeah. We were
so
exhausted. Got in from work. Claire came to work with me, which was lovely. Got in, we were both like, oh, so tired. Got no kids. So, you know, what do? Go out and party? Go out and watch the Northern
no.
Lights? No, you have an early night, which is exactly what we did. And we were both zonked out by about 9:30.
Oh,
Woke
I love
up the
that for you
next day.
guys.
No,
I love that.
so rock and roll.
Yeah.
Yeah, woke up the next day and we were like, let's sit in bed, have a nice coffee, peruse Facebook. We were like, what's this? Dun, dun, dun. What?
Every single motherfucker out there has
Oh,
seen the
so
Northern Lights
good.
but
I
us.
know. We looked on my family group and everyone was like, oh, look how beautiful the lights were. And we were like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Yeah, gutted.
Gutted.
Absolutely gutted, mate. I couldn't
Yeah.
believe it. I know. And we did the same the following night. We were actually driving home from work again. And there was all these lay-bys, like full of people and cars and all that. And we were like, oh, maybe we're going to see them again tonight. So we like pulled over, had a look, nothing.
No. Well, apparently they're hard to see with your eyes. It's best to see through like when you do exposure on your phone, if you put the exposure to a certain like 30 seconds, 10 seconds, whatever, that's what captures it, because your eyes are designed to not see colors or brightness in the dark. And it's like a primitive thing.
Yeah.
So they're quite hard to see actually with your eyes. But
Well, I'll show you. I'll show you. I put the correct setting,
yeah.
high exposure, all of that on my camera, on my phone.
Yeah, I saw some really vivid clouds.
I mean, it was clear. It was
Yeah.
clear where we were, and you could clearly see the stars. I got a great picture of the Big Dipper.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, it was lovely. But yeah, no Northern Lights, not a single one. It was black, 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 black.
Yeah.
Good.
Right, what story have you got for me today?
All right. Well, I am going to introduce you guys to the Squirm trilogy.
The what?
The Squirm trilogy.
Okay. I don't even know. I've no idea what this is.
I know, right? All right. Well, let's do the introduction and then we'll squirm together. So the Squirm trilogy, what created this episode was there's a few stories, there's quite a lot actually of very sort of short stories, but they were stories that my best description is that they made me squirm. Like I just remember listening and they've really stuck with me, these stories.
Right.
And I thought they're not long enough to do a full episode, but they're really uncomfortable stories that
Okay.
I've never heard anywhere else. And I was like, oh God, that made me squirm, made me feel really uncomfortable. And I thought, do you know what? I'll do an episode and I'll call it the Squirm Trilogy. There may be Squirm Trilogy Part 2, Part 3, possibly in the future. But the Squirm Trilogy comes with a trigger warning. So these are exactly as they sound. It's an episode that contains 3 stories that may make you feel very uncomfortable. If you are not comfortable with hearing about small spaces, being trapped underwater, insects, suffocation, being buried or burned alive, the Squirm trilogy episodes are not for you. So consider yourself trigger warned. So the first story is called Terror at the Big Game. In the bustling city of San Francisco, excitement filled the air as the big game, the annual showdown between the California Golden Bears and the Stanford Cardinals, was underway. It was Thanksgiving Day, November 29th, 1900, and the stadium overflowed with 19,000 eager spectators, whilst thousands more gathered in the streets, drawn by the thrill of the match. But not everyone could afford the steep $1 admission fee, and in the year of 1900 this would have been around $40. A daring group of around 800 individuals decided to seek a better view atop the nearby San Francisco and Pacific Glass Works factory. The factory was 4 stories tall and kind of looked a bit abandoned, with old broken windows, crumbling bricks, things like that. The building had no actual floors inside it. It was kind of, if you can envision this sort of big brick building, 4 stories high, but it had no actual floors inside. So it looked like a big shell, and the glass factory was set up on the concrete floor inside. There were hundreds of people scaling the outside of this building, frantic to get onto the roof for the perfect view of the big game they've waited a whole year for. Perched precariously on the factory's roof, the spectators marvelled at the unfolding game. They jumped and cheered, crying out for their team to take the win. Some were congratulating each other on a great plan to reach the top of this huge building for a completely free view of the event of the year. As it would turn out, the climb was far from free. Tragedy struck just 20 minutes into the match. The weight of the crowd had proved too much for the fragile structure. With a deafening, heart-stopping crash, the roof began to collapse. One side of the roof bowed down and gave way, with the people on it disappearing in an instant. Chaos engulfed the scene. Screams pierced the air as bodies tumbled 4 stories down onto the factory floor below. Several unfortunate souls landed directly on top of the furnace as molten glass bubbled beneath them. At first they thought, what's the matter?
I'm squirming. What's the matter?
Oh no, it gets worse. At first they thought they'd been spared, having only fallen around 20 feet when the others had crashed all the way down to the 4 stories. They fell 20 foot onto a solid brick structure. However, their bodies began quickly to register the unbelievable heat that what turned out to be the actual roof of the furnace. Oh. They had little time to accept that they had landed on a construction that had a temperature of 500 Fahrenheit. And that was just the surface temperature of the actual structure. It was like 3,000 degrees in the actual furnace. Their screams were loud and primal, but short. The bodies writhed in pain and horror for a matter of seconds before they ignited, and then they fell motionless and silent.
That's because we are highly flammable. We spoke about this in the spontaneous combustion, didn't we?
We did.
We are highly flammable.
Yeah, I mean, I would be, because my body is like 98% fat.
Stop it.
I'd burn like a flare. I would.
Go up like crisp.
I would. Be like a 100-hour candle. I'm laughing about me. I'm not laughing about these people. People were bursting into flames mere seconds after landing on the top of the furnace. For some, the terror lasted slightly longer when they found that they had landed on the beams that were hovering over the top of the furnace. They were about 10 feet above the gigantic oven. As they hung on for dear life, they helplessly watched their friends and fellow supporters being engulfed in fire, all the time knowing that they were destined for the same fate. Moments later, when they were unable to hold their grip, they would fall and burn too. Amidst the carnage, heroes emerged. Factory employees, risking their own lives, battled the flames and wreckage to rescue the trapped and injured. Metal poles became tools of salvation, prying bodies from the grasp of death. Despite the horror unfolding mere yards away, the game pressed on, with Stanford ultimately claiming victory. But the cost was steep. 13 lives were lost that fateful day, with 9 more slipping away in the following days. Among the fallen, most, sadly, were children. Their dreams shattered in an instant. In the aftermath, no grand memorial rose to mark this tragedy. Only a solitary cross at a young boy's grave stood as testament to the lives lost. As the newspapers emerged the following day with headlines of the disaster, the true magnitude of the event was totally overshadowed by the tales of glory. Yes, you heard that right. Newspapers were talking about the victory of the big game, with a mere mention of the tragedy at the glassworks. Yet for those who witnessed the Thanksgiving Day disaster, its memory would forever haunt the streets of San Francisco, a reminder of the fragility of life amidst the passion of sport. The San Francisco Call, which was a newspaper, said, "This was perhaps the most horrifying accident that ever happened in San Francisco." The end.
Well, that's just horrendous, isn't it?
It just freaked me out, that story. The thought that obviously a roof collapsing when there's like 800 people up there. But to then fall and think, oh, I've been saved, and then realise,
burst into flame.
Yeah, realise like how hot it is that you've just like landed on top of a building, thought you'd been saved, and then just instantly burned to death. It's just hideous. Absolutely hideous.
It takes time to register as well. Like, you know, when you put your arm in the oven and you burn it on the top rack.
Yeah.
And you think, ow, that's hot. And you've actually held it there for like 5 seconds.
5 minutes.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah. Yeah. It's
But did you say some fell into the molten glass?
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah, I know. It's yeah, it's hideous. Some actually went all the way in. Some landed on the brick roof.
Yeah.
Good. Hideous. Absolutely hideous. This next one is called Man in the Cupboard.
Cool.
It's exactly as it sounds. Ronald McGlagish kept himself to himself. He was a quiet man and he worked as a mechanic. He lived alone in a small bungalow in a quiet village called Morrow in England, which actually, having looked at the map, Sarah, is not too far from you.
Oh, really?
Yes. In 2004, Ronald went through a breakup with his girlfriend, Laura, and he took it really hard. He didn't want this to be the end. He tried to talk to her about giving it another go, but she was adamant that they were done. Ronald became super depressed. He couldn't get Laura out of his head. He was having trouble sleeping. He couldn't eat. He just felt so sad without her. This went on for several weeks, and he just got to the point where he reached his limit and he thought, do you know what? I can't keep going on like this. I need to rid myself and my home of anything to do with Laura. So he thought, I'll get rid of everything today, right now. So he was frantically throwing things out. He threw out all her clothes that she'd left there, any pictures of them together, any presents that she'd bought for him. Like, everything was going. It was all being chucked in bags, gone. He was absolutely like tearing his place apart, chucking everything out. Whilst he was doing this, he stepped into his wardrobe to ensure that he'd got every last memory out of there. When bam, the wardrobe door slammed shut behind him and he was trapped. Ronald suspected that someone had crept into his bungalow without him realizing it and shut him in the wardrobe, making him a prisoner in this coffin-sized cell. He went into a wild panic.
Why couldn't he get out?
Door was shut.
Yeah, but like, if my cupboard door, I could quite easily open it from.
You'll find out.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, he went into this wild panic. He was clawing at the door, banging his fists against the wood. This door would just not budge. I mean, it was a solid wood door, but there's a reason why he couldn't get out, and you'll find out why. The air inside this cupboard became hot and thick. It was pitch black, and he was finding it impossible to get a full breath of air. This panic was considerably worse for Ronald because he suffered really badly with asthma. Ronald had no room to move in there either. It was tiny. He couldn't sit down. He couldn't even bend down. It was literally like he was standing upright in a coffin. He searched for anything that he could use to break open the door. And when he looked up, he saw that there was actually pipes that were going across in the ceiling of the wardrobe. So I thought, I'll have that. It's metal. I'll be able to use it to either maybe try and pry the door open, or maybe like hack at the door with the metal pipe and break through. So he grabbed hold of one of these pipes, yanked it. When he pulled this, he pulled the pipe down, snapped it off. He had the horrifying realization that this was in fact a water pipe.
Oh no!
I know.
Oh god!
Freezing ice cold water began to rain down on Ronald's face and head. He was howling and pounding on the walls and the door of the wardrobe, screaming for someone to help, but nobody heard a thing. Ronald was now shivering and shaking uncontrollably. He didn't give up. He continued screaming and shouting, but to no avail. He tried his best to move his head out of the way of the torrent of this icy water that was like a winter waterfall driving down on him, but there was just no space to move. This nightmare continued for hours. The hours turned into days.
What?
He couldn't get out. He was trapped, as trapped can be.
I did not. Was it not like gushing out? Because otherwise it would have filled up.
Yeah, well, it was kind of escaping under the door as well.
Oh, okay.
He was maybe 8 to 10 inches deep in the bottom of it. So his feet and the bottom of his legs were just standing in this freezing ice cold water.
Gosh.
Ronald's skin went from a healthy pink to bright red to blue. And then his skin began to slide off of his flesh. Several days later, police received a call from one of Ronald's neighbours saying that they could hear strange noises coming from the bungalow. Police arrived at the property to find the door unlocked. They entered the bungalow and shouted to see if anyone was home. The police could hear the sound of running water from the room at the back of the bungalow. When they entered the bedroom, they saw a large wooden cupboard had toppled over and come to rest at a 45-degree angle against the door of the wardrobe opposite. You see, in Ronald's frenzy to rid himself of every single memory of his ex, he had unsettled a few bits of furniture in his bedroom, one being a large solid wooden cupboard opposite the wardrobe. They could tell that the running water sound was coming from the wardrobe that had been pinned shut. They pulled the cupboard off and opened the wardrobe, and sadly they found Ronald dead inside. He had been there for around 10 days, and most of his skin had been peeled off by the torrent of water that had been continuously thundering down on him for over a week. But the story doesn't end there. Later in the same year, in November, Ronald's brother visited the police and had the case reopened. Ronald's brother and sister felt that this wasn't an accident. His sister claimed that she had seen Ronald a few days before he'd been trapped and said that he had a big cut across his nose and several bruises. Quote from Ronald's sister, "He looked like he'd been in a fight or certainly been hit in the face." End quote. Ronald's brother said that he'd seen the bungalow after Ronald's death, and he said it didn't look like he'd just been sorting stuff out, even if he'd been in some sort of mad frenzy to get rid of all Laura things. He said it looked like the whole bungalow had just been trashed. So we ask ourselves, was this just a really unfortunate, sad accident? Or was it a murder gone unpunished? No one knows.
Well, I think a big heavy wooden wardrobe's not just going to fall over. Like, if you're sorting stuff out, you don't just upset a heavy wardrobe and then go into another one and then it falls. Do you know what I mean?
I mean, it's I had only heard the story. I hadn't heard until I was researching it to do it for this. When I originally heard this story, I just heard that the police found him and they said, you know, he'd been basically like moving furniture. He wanted to make the whole house look completely different.
Feng shui.
Yeah, you know, I'm going to put that. I mean, it could have been a piece of furniture that they'd bought together and he thought, I'm getting rid of that, and pulled it away from the wall. I don't know. I mean, when I've been trying to level bookshelves and things, I've had like wedges of thin pieces of wood under each side and things like that to get it level. Who knows? I don't know. Maybe he'd sort of pulled it out to, I don't know, get rid of it or something. I don't know. Or maybe he was involved in something a little bit more sinister that his family didn't know about. And I mean, his siblings seem to think that there's no way that this could have been an accident, but the police seem adamant that no, it was just an unfortunate accident.
I mean, the whole water thing's an unfortunate accident. That couldn't have been planned in with a murder. That's just horrific. But either way, it's squirmy.
It's horrible. Yeah, yep. Squirmy. And okay, so the third story, it is quite sad. Well, it's very sad. And yeah, there's no other way. I tried to reword it and rewrite it a couple of times, but it's just sad. So the third story is called Life on a Shoestring. On April 10th, 2018, Kyle Plush was attending a tennis match at his school that was called Seven Hills. Kyle was only 16 years old and he loved playing tennis. He was really good at it as well. Although he was only 16, he drove because this was America and they're awesome. We are not allowed to drive when we are 16 over here. But yeah, so he drove a gold Honda like minivan and it had like blacked out windows at the back. On this particular evening, Kyle was sitting in the back of his minivan getting changed into his tennis gear. And when it came time for him to don his tennis shoes, he realised that they were in the boot. As the rear seats, so the third row nearest the boot, were folded down anyway. He decided to just kneel on the folded seats, reach over, grab his shoes instead of getting out without his shoes on, walking around to the back. But as Kyle stretched down, the seats, which were kind of those seats that you can like fold down and then the whole thing flips over and it folds everything nice and flat in the back. So
I know this one. Oh my God, I know of this story.
It's horrible, isn't it?
Yeah.
As he reached down, the seats moved and flipped up, which pushed him head first into the boot. So the edge of the folded seats were pushing into his stomach and his back was pressed upside down against the back door, like the boot of the car. So although Kyle could now reach his shoes, he couldn't move. If he pushed himself deeper into the boot, the folded seat would squeeze against his belly, pushing him harder into the rear door. If he tried to move up and back into the main compartment of the car, the folded seat would move with him, so he wouldn't sort of have anywhere else to go. As Kyle hung upside down in the back of his Honda, he thought, I'll phone for help. Then quickly realised that his phone was actually on the middle row of seats and well out of his reach. He then had this brilliant idea and he shouted, "Hey Siri, call 911. Siri obliged. And in the distance, he could hear
911, what's your emergency?
Kyle shouted that he was stuck in the car and needed help now. He said he feared he was going to die if he didn't receive help soon. He was gasping and struggling to breathe.
Cincinnati 911, that is the address of your emergency.
Help! Help!
Cincinnati 911.
I'm stuck in my bed outside the 7 Hills parking lot.
The Seven Hills what parking lot?
Help! I need help.
Where are you? Hello?
I'm gonna die here.
Where are you?
I probably don't have much time left to tell my mom that I love her if I die. This is not a joke. This is not a joke. I'm trapped inside my gold Honda Odyssey van in the software parking lot of 7 Hills Theft. Send officers immediately. I'm almost dead.
The dispatcher told the officers that were attending the call that there was a kid at the high school that needed some help. She did not say anything about Kyle saying that he was scared he might die. She did not say he was in a gold minivan. She did not say that he was close to death. The patrol drove around, obviously couldn't see anything out of the ordinary, so drove away. Sometime later, Kyle managed to call 911 again, using the same method. He said, quote, "This is not a joke. I am trapped in a gold Honda minivan in the parking lot of 7 Hills. Send officers immediately. I am almost dead. If I don't make it, please tell my mum I love her." End quote. The police again drove around the school and looked for less than 20 minutes, but couldn't find anything. They closed the call out and went about their business. Kyle sadly died and was found 6 hours later by his father. Kyle's family sued the police for wrongful death, and after a lengthy trial, they received just over $6 million, which was no compensation for the loss of their loving 16-year-old son, who they lost due to severe negligence of lazy police that should have spent more than 20 minutes looking for a young boy in distress. Since that sad day, police have made huge changes and worked tirelessly with the Plush family to ensure that this never happens again. And I have to say, Sarah, this case really got me thinking a lot about Kendrick Johnson. Because a big part of the reason that Kyle died was not only that he couldn't breathe because he was getting crushed by the seat, but it was positional asphyxia, exactly the same as what they said about Kendrick Johnson, and also reaching for shoes.
Yeah, I remember that story, and it's awful.
Yeah,
it's just really scary.
It's tragic. It's really, really tragic. It's like, how can something like that, so it seems like just such a silly mistake, you know? And it's scary how fragile life is when you can do something like that and suddenly find yourself in a position where you're like, oh, I can't get up, I can't get out, and then what do you do? You know, there's
just
nothing
seemed
you
like
do.
everything was working against him.
Yeah, hideous. Absolutely hideous. But so squirmy stories.
You were right about the squirmy stories.
It's uncomfortable, isn't it? Sorry about that.
Thanks for those.
Well, if I've got to keep remembering them, they stick with me. I can't.
They are the sort of things that I'll be like, oh my god, do you remember that? Do you remember that story?
Yeah. So I thought I'd give that gift to all of you. You're
Pay
welcome.
it forward.
Yeah. Paying forward the squirm.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you. My next week's story, also a squirmy story.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Do we get a clue, or is it going to be a total surprise?
No, I'll just surprise everyone.
Oh, okay. Cool. Well, thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Sorry
see
to
you
make
next
you all
time.
squirm.
Bye.
All right, thanks. Bye.
If you have enjoyed listening to our episodes, make sure you rate us and leave us a review on whatever platform you are listening.
We absolutely love hearing from you guys. So you can also help support our show by donating to our Buy Me a Coffee link. We will make sure that you get a massive shout out and a big thank you in our next week's episode.
You can also follow us on social media at Perplexed Podcasts. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and if you want to see more videos and blooper reels, subscribe to our TikTok and YouTube channels.
You can also email us your stories at perplexedpodcasts@gmail.com.
And you can find all the relevant links in the episode descriptions. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye. Hi, Mothman, if you're out there. Hope you enjoyed it. I love you.